Been a while, my little mermaids. So long since we got an update on our boy Johnny, but the time is here and Korea has him bound in chains, but not yet ready to submit to the long, sharp, and seasoned blade of the law. So let's shove our puños suaves in gently and take a look at Ramzi Khalid Ismail's legal case. First off, let's pop some champagne. But not for the Johnny Somali conviction team, but rather the gremlin himself. You see, he actually scored a win. He managed to get one of the deepfake charges dropped on Yung Mong's side of things. And these sorts of resolutions happen when both parties are enemies of the law, while simultaneously serving as benefactors of said law. Yung Mong himself is not innocent, not completely anyways. He's actually in jail right now. But he had his own trial because he showed the deepfake of him and Hank kissing, which means that none other than Johnny Somali was one of the witnesses. And he lied a lot while in this role, pretending not to know his address, because Yung Mong was accused of stalking Johnny. You can't exactly stick those kinds of charges or claims, however, when your supposed victim apparently doesn't even know where he lives. Now, the reason Johnny lied is related to his own case and his last trial, where we received conflicting reports from Johnny and Hank, with his second-in-command in a K-Town interview saying that RKI moved, while Johnny claimed not to have done so. So he doesn't want that to come out, but of course, it's going to, whether he likes it or not. As I understand it, there was some kind of hostile social interaction between Yung Mong, Hank, and Johnny. Johnny pressed charges against Yung Mong for stalking, deepfake, and assault with a baton. Yung Mong also verbally admitted to hitting Johnny with a baton, so we know it most likely actually happened, because that is not something you admit to unless you're willing to be transparent and submit to legal punishment. Not to mention, these people always stream everything, so there may very well be video evidence that would have worked against Yung Mong anyways. I don't imagine all that many people feel any sort of pity for RKI. The irony here is that Johnny is actually guilty of committing two of the charges that he pressed against Yung Mong, i.e. stalking and deepfake distribution. Everyone testified as well, all the streamers involved anyways. Funniest one was Hank, where in the midst of testifying, he basically went off topic to berate the judge and be like, "Hey dude, what you're doing to Johnny is so unfair. I don't like Korean law." And proceeds to give his totally irrelevant and philosophically profound opinion on Korean law. Like, bro, shut up and give your account of what happened. That's what you're there to do. Other than that, Hank also admitted to wanting money from the settlement, sensible as Johnny is an expensive guy to take care of, but he withdrew on that by the end of the trial. What's really weird about the baton charge is that while Yung Mong got a hold of it, Hank and Johnny were the ones who brought it in the first place. Difficult to say what precisely might have happened, but if you are bringing a melee weapon to a fight and letting it fall into the hands of an enemy, then you must not be very bright in the first place. According to Hank, though, Yung Mong didn't even need to disarm either of them to get his hands on it, he just picked it up. Meaning that if that is true, Hank's dumbass just laid it down at some point and turned his attention elsewhere, allowing Yung Mong to just take it as if he were stealing candy from a baby. So let's go over Johnny's stupid responses. He did lie a lot after all. He repeatedly said he didn't know or remember in response to things he clearly/probably knew about, avoiding questions about having distributed on YouTube before Yung Mong, saying in quote, "Police already verified I didn't make it," to the deepfake charge, acting as if that actually matters. Who knows when he might finally see how worthless the "there was no intent" argument is when the problem is that you distributed the deepfakes. That's like hitting someone in the rib with an aluminum bat and then saying, "Well, it doesn't matter because I didn't have any malicious intent." He claimed that Yung Mong made several false claims against him too, which is why he was pressing charges supposedly. Johnny also apparently doesn't remember the important details of the assault, like who brought the baton. How convenient to forget when Hank was the one that brought it. So we know why he would want to lie in that regard too. He also said, and I quote, "The whole thing was so traumatic and also, it was the scariest day of my life." He said Gino was the only witness of the assault and then tried to submit video evidence on the spot. Improper procedure, as it should have been submitted weeks prior. At that point, Johnny for some reason admitted to saying, "Come find me" on both October 28th and the 30th, essentially inviting the Korean streamers to come clap his cheeks. This mitigates the stalking allegations. Now, all this lying, while easier to get away with in a trial that isn't his own, can still get him in trouble for perjury. So it's debatable whether or not getting the deepfake charge dropped, like the soap finna be once he gets in jail, was even worth it. This court trial ended with Johnny Somali dropping his 3 charges against Yung Mong, and Yung Mong dropping the deepfake charge against Johnny. The thing about Yung Mong is that he is already in jail for other matters, including throwing bricks. Given the position that Yung Mong is in, having the charges of Johnny's tacked against him along with all his other legal problems right now, he would have gotten an extra 10 years possibly, and Johnny Somali just isn't worth that. So it's pretty understandable why he would drop the charge if it means he could settle. And then after the trial, Atozi went up to Johnny to ask him about some stuff, but he wasn't in a real good mood, so he just ended up kind of crashing out at him.
You a cloud chaser for who?
Cloud chaser for who? What do you mean?
Free Israel, support the IDF.
That's all?
You're an anti-Semite, I'm a Jew, and you are being anti-Semitic. You are a Nazi.
Rather comical, isn't it? The taste of his own medicine doesn't seem to be all that appealing. Next, we'll talk about Johnny's own trial. Here's the trial where the deepfake victims were meant to testify. As previously stated, Johnny only has 7 charges now since he was able to pressure Yung Mong into settling. Even in spite of this though, Yung Mong was still there and gave a private testimony, as did Hank. This meant that the courtroom was cleared for Johnny, Yung Mong, and the judge. So Atozi and the Somali conviction team simply waited outside of the courtroom. The testimonies lasted almost 2 hours. This is where Johnny's lawyer, or sorry, his tax litigator, made a prolonged argument over a charge that Johnny already pled guilty to, the Lotte World charge. But I guess Johnny still wants to provide some kind of argument. The lawyer argued that since Johnny wasn't charged for these CSH allegations, he is therefore innocent. All in all, just a very pitiful and flawed narrative. Unfortunately for Johnny, one of the witnesses didn't show up, Bong Bong. At the time of this trial, she was in Australia visiting and couldn't make it. She went as far as to say she doesn't care. Her lawyer said she doesn't have to go and she does not care about Johnny Somali. So pretty based Bong Bong here. And she could have theoretically missed as many court dates as she wants, possibly keeping the streamer stuck in legal limbo for over 70 years if she wanted. That being said, there are incentives against this, such as she herself incurring court fines that would equate to what we Americans know as $3,500. Here's a clip of her basically going, "Oh shoot, this might be a bad idea."
Somali trial. Testimony. I don't know. I'm talking to a lawyer, but they didn't answer. Lawyer said that I don't have to, but just in case I will go to airport. I don't know. It's so annoying. I think I don't have to, isn't it? Yeah, I need to pay the fine. If I don't know, I have to pay the fine or not. There's a paper, like absence paper. I can send the absence paper, they said. The fine is 5,000 Australian dollar maximum, I think. Oh, I don't think I have to pay that much for that. That's too much. Seriously, too much.
So yeah, that happened. Needless to say, she promised to make the next one. The next trial is set for February 11th, 2026. Likely going to have a new judge too, because South Korea undergoes yearly rotation for their judges. We'll have to see if she keeps her promise and it doesn't slip her mind, as she goes to plan a trip to Hawaii or something. But logically speaking, is Johnny Somali worth all those fines? I don't think so. The trial soon wrapped up after the testimonies. Atozi and the gang were even allowed back into the courtroom after the judge called for the clearing for the private testimonies. This in itself was also the judge's decision. Yung Mong didn't advocate for it, nor did Hank. Regardless though, this is not common. Usually when a courtroom is cleared for private testimonies, this is how the court trial will end. It's so rare that even the bailiff was surprised because the judge looked at Itosi and was like, "You know what? I like you guys' vibe. Come on back in and see how this ends." At that point, Johnny finally stood up and looked at the judge with eyes full of sincerity, or more likely, desperation, and he requested an expedited trial, citing that he has family responsibilities back in the United States. Now, as you can imagine, there are some problems with this sentiment. Johnny's family has repeatedly argued with him over his nuisance streaming antics, insisting that he knock it off. So it seems like he has some reasonable folks. He has repeatedly reported to us on past streams that he has family issues because of the harassment he puts people through. With that in mind, he absolutely can't and doesn't have any family obligations. The judge didn't care either, for you see, expedited trials are generally for people who express actual remorse, something Johnny has never done to this day, or for cases of mass prosecution, such as the political riots that Yung Mong took part in during the declaration of martial law in South Korea. Seeing as Johnny is being used to set an example, he fails to fall into that category as well. I can only imagine the look on Johnny's face when the judge calmly explained to him that some people can be trapped in the Korean legal processing system for up to 7 years, and that if this is how long it takes for Johnny's trial, that is by no means a problem for the South Koreans. Anyways, that is basically where we are at with the Johnny Somali case. Feels good to talk about him again. He's my favorite poop-stained rag to make videos about. But there really wasn't much to cover until now. If you enjoyed the video or found it informative, leaving a like goes a long way. And if you want to take it a step further, then I would say it's time to give up your humanity and become a mermaid. Doing so will involve a 24-hour process of excruciating agony, where your legs will be fused together into a tail fin not unlike my own. But after the horrifying mutation is over, you will know a life of profound, unrelenting, and incomprehensible bliss. Sounds like a pretty sweet deal. Anyways, talk to you guys later.